everybody. I'm going to call this meeting to order. This is the December 5th, 2017 meeting of the Corte Madera Town Council. Welcome. May we please call the roll.
Councilmember Andrews.
Present.
Councilmember Bailey.
Here.
Councilmember Ravazio.
Here.
Vice Mayor Condon.
Here.
Mayor First.
Here. Would you all please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Thank you. First up on the agenda is open time for public comment. This is the time we set aside for folks to speak to anything not on tonight's agenda. Is there anybody who would like to speak at open time? Hi, you've got 3 minutes. We will have a timer up on the screen, and this goes for all public speakers. Up on the screen is a timer, and the little rectangle will grow in a red outline. You'll see it, and we give you 3 minutes. Please state your name and where you live.
Jean Greenbaum, Casa Buena Drive. I'm speaking for myself and on behalf of the Village Green Homeowners Association. Casa Buena Drive, south of Marin Joe's, is all residential, and for a while now I've been asking about removing commercial vehicles parking along that stretch of the road. There's now a 72-hour limit for parking, but many people ignore this even when they are repeatedly tagged by the police. I recently exchanged emails with Pam Miller, who's the town's code enforcement officer, who wrote that illegal parking, I guess, is a real problem all over Corte Madera. She wrote that the only way to address this problem is to have no parking signs, which would provide the town with a better legal standing for towing and impounding these vehicles. I understand that without posted signs, the town nor the police can tow or impound vehicles. I believe, as she does, that if people would be less inclined to park there, since they're totally ignoring any of the regulations right now, if they were going to be towed and it was going to cost them money. Large trucks, there's trailers, there's RVs. They're a hazard along that very windy part of the Casa Buena Drive. Also, because it is residential for the most part, even though it is along the highway, it really detracts from the character of the neighborhood, and I think it reduces our property values. There's a new condo going up, and I'm sure potential renters or buyers going past some of these trucks are not very happy. So I ask that signs be posted for no parking of commercial vehicles south of Marin Joe's, or I really believe the entire street should have it, because I think the businesses that are there north of Marin Joe's and Marin Joe's requires parking for their own customers. These commercial vehicles are not local vehicles. I understand people have actually talked to these people, and I understand that a lot of them are from San Rafael, where they have posted signs, and now they're using, I guess, various locations elsewhere to park. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who would like to speak at open time? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to presentations. We have a presentation of an award to the town of Corte Madera from Marin Clean Energy in recognition of the town's environmental leadership and commitment to deep green. Would you like to introduce this, Sloan?
I will, and it'll be very brief. I know we have lots of important things on the agenda this evening. This is a very attractive recycled award presented to the town from Marin Clean Energy. It reads as follows: Marin Clean Energy, in recognition of the town of Corte Madera for your environmental leadership and commitment to deep green, 100% renewable energy. And this is because the town opted up fairly recently to purchase all of its power needs from 100% recycled sources. I'm very proud to be the town's representative on Marin Clean Energy, and I thank them for the award. And I know there is nothing too small for us not to pat ourselves on the back for. So this is another one. Great. Congratulations, Corte Madera.
Thank you. All righty, moving on to the consent calendar. The purpose of the consent calendar is to group items together which are routine or have been discussed previously and do not require further discussion. They will be approved by a single motion unless anybody wants to remove one for discussion. Any member of the council, staff, or the public may remove an item. Carla, did you have one?
I sure do. If we could please remove 4.1.3. I cannot vote on that as the property is within 300 feet of my property.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who would like to remove any other item for discussion? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion to approve 4.1.1 through 4.1.10, excluding 4.1.3.
So moved.
Second.
Councilmember Andrews?
Yes.
Councilmember Bailey?
Yes.
Councilmember Ravazio?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Condon?
Yes.
Mayor First?
Yes. All right, we have 4.1.3. Carla, you stated your concern.
Yes.
I'd like to ask our town attorney, for a consent item like this, does Carla need to literally leave the dais, or?
She does not for a consent item.
Okay, thank you. All right, so I will entertain a motion, unless anybody else would like to make a comment on 4.1.3. Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Councilmember Andrews?
Yes.
Councilmember Bailey?
Yes.
Councilmember Ravazio?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Condon? Mayor First?
Yes. Thank you. Do we register that as abstaining? I mean, and that's properly conveyed, or do we need to clarify?
She's a recusal. She's a recusal.
Okay, got it. All right, thank you. Moving on, boy, that was quick. We are now at 5.1, the public hearing for Village at Corte Madera Restoration Hardware Expansion Project. I have a few things to mention about the process we will be following. We are going to try to do this as efficiently as possible so that we can get public comment sooner rather than later. I know sometimes these public hearings drag on and people have to wait a very long time to comment. So we are going to try to get public comments in a little bit earlier than normal. So we are going to have two opportunities for the public to weigh in on this. The first is about the Restoration Hardware building. The second one will be about the gravel lot. Our Phil Boyle from our planning department will explain, but we're going to start off with discussing the Restoration Hardware building itself. Okay, Phil?
And just for those of you who were at the Planning Commission public hearings, that was the same format we followed with the Planning Commission as well.
Okay, good evening. Let's get this. We're good? Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. I'm Phil Boyle, Senior Planner with the Town of Corte Madera, and good evening to the public and all members watching at home. This project is, as the Mayor mentioned, the Village at Corte Madera Expansion Project Restoration Hardware. And I'll just give a brief overview of how, as the Mayor mentioned, our structure, oh great. So hopefully this will go. Okay, as the Mayor mentioned, our meeting format, again, like we did with the Planning Commission, I will provide a project overview, which includes the project description, the application process, and the environmental impact report. And then we will launch into the restoration hardware building itself, Again, I'll provide a staff report in more detail about the building, and then we'll have presentations by the applicants, and then we'll have public comment regarding the building, and then town council questions. Following that, we'll move to the gravel lot, which again, I will present a staff report. We'll have presentations by Macerich, one of the applicants, and then public comment and town council questions. And then finally, I'll discuss the findings and provide staff recommendation. In terms of staff reports, that will be done by myself as well as the consultants that worked on the project. So on that note, I wanted to actually back up. I wanted to first start out with thank yous. This has been a long process. We started in about 2.5 years ago. So I want to express gratitude and thank you to Adam Wolf and Judith Propp for all the hard work they've done. We've all worked as a team on this very lengthy project, as well as Pat Collins, who's here, and also Christine Gaspar, who's not here, and she was the project lead on the environmental impact report, which we'll talk about. And lastly, the applicants. I think everybody worked together and created a really good project and a good outcome overall. And so, with that, items that are available to you, to everybody in the back table, are the draft environmental impact report, the final environmental impact report, and those two documents were included in the council packet. We also have the project description, have a set of plans, any public comments that were received after distribution of the packet, which was November 30th. And then back there I have the staff report for both this meeting as well as the staff report for the Planning Commission meeting, as well as the entire Planning Commission packet, if someone wants to look at that as well. All documents have also been on the town's website for many, many months, depending upon when they were released. Everything except comments that were received post November 30th. And in fact, I think that may not be incorrect. I think we got a lot of those comments on the website as well. Lastly is our town website. Just a reference if anybody wants to refer to any of it. If they're watching at home, you can go online there and see any of the documents. I did also want to point out at your places, I provided you with hard copies of comments that were received post distribution of the packet. So with that, I will launch into the project overview. First, the image on the left, of course, is our vicinity map, showing the village. As I'm sure most people know, the village of Corte Madera is on the east side of Highway 101. East of the village itself is wetlands and open space. The north is the gravel lot itself, as we will discuss. Shorebird Marsh is north of that. And then to the east, again, Highway 101, town center, and residential properties, and other commercial properties. I did want to point out that the nearest residential property to both the Restoration Hardware Building, or the RH Gallery, as I'll refer to it, and the gravel lot, the nearest residential property is in the Crescent Road, Council Crest Road, and Tamil Vista area is the nearest residential properties. Bottom right is the site plan. The square here is indicating where the proposed building is to be. To the left is Nordstrom's. To the right is Macy's. And center is the village itself and the smaller stores. Just to give you a perspective of scale, again, Restoration Hardware Building is approximately 46,000 square feet. As a reference point, Nordstrom is approximately 100,000 square feet. Both buildings, Restoration Hardware is a two-story building with a roof deck. Nordstrom's is a two-story building. Table here just shows some of the numbers related to the village as a whole. And this is the total amount that was allotted per the general plan. And then the last number is the total amount of square footage that would be allowed at the village if this project was to be approved and constructed. So there's still some room for village expansion per the 2009 general plan. So the RH Gallery, the building itself, is proposed to be have a retail store and cafe of approximately 46,000 square feet. The cafe itself will be 5,800 square feet on the first level. So this is a view looking to the east. Again, just giving an overview of both projects, the gravel lot itself is proposed to be improved, and they will create 452 parking spaces. 407 of those will be standard. Approximately 45 will be compact, which is about 10% of the total spaces. Our code allows 30% of spaces to be compact, so they're well below the maximum allowed. So the gravel lot itself will be landscaped and lighted. The area of the gravel, the area of the disturbed area will not be increased, and the area that's being paved is what is currently gravel. So just give you a perspective of that. As shown on the upper right, there will be rain gardens or bioretention that will filter the rainwater before it is released. And I'll go into that in more detail when we talk about the gravel lot. In terms of parking, just want to give a parking summary. This is also in the staff report. Just briefly, just skipping down, the first 4 lines are dealing with the total number of existing parking spaces and the total proposed. Currently, there are 1,781 spaces. Number of spaces that will be created by the gravel lot, as you just saw, was 452. The net change, some modifications will reduce some of the parking, and the total proposed will be 2,067. And jumping down to the last line is the summary, and with the total of 2,067 being proposed, a total of 1,931 are required per the town code, and so the project in the end will have an excess of 136 spaces as compared to what's required by the Corte Madera Municipal Code. And feel free to interrupt me at any time if you have questions as I go. The application process, again, long process. We've been working on this for quite a while. Started back in June 2015. We interviewed 3 or 4 different environmental consultants. We chose a GHD back in October of 2015. Their contract and was brought before you, and the council approved their contract. And then town began discussions about that same time with both the town council and the town manager and the applicants regarding terms for the gravel lot. The scope of the environmental impact report was presented to the public back in November of 2016, just about a year ago, and that was a noticed meeting. It was a public meeting. It was held here. We got numerous comments from the public and took those into account when we drafted and had the consultants draft the environmental impact report. And based upon a lot of feedback from the public, the applicant revised their project. That's when they actually reduced the size of the building somewhat, and they also added the cafe. Council endorsed the term sheet for the gravel lot in March of this year. Continuing on with the process, we had a public hearing to review the draft environmental impact report August of this year, and we had during that, in the middle of that, was the 45-day review period of the document itself. It was sent out to many public agencies, and the public was able to make comments on it. It was available on the website, and then we had the public hearing. After that, all comments that were received on the draft EIR were taken in and written down and were responded to. And each response and each comment is found in the final EIR, and that was released in just last month. Also last month, the Planning Commission held a public hearing and unanimously recommended approval to this body to approve all the entitlements for the project. And that that public hearing was well attended. It's also, of course, minutes are attached to your packet, and the video is available online. Town Council will review and make final determination on this project, as well as all of its entitlements and the environmental impact report. In terms of public notices and public meetings, we had a very extensive public noticing process. We tried to get the word out any way we could. It was on the town website. We had direct mailings. We had notices in the Marin Independent Journal, nextdoor.com, our town reader board, and a town email list for individuals who had signed up to learn about this particular project, as well as all projects in town. Total, we had 8 public meetings on the project to date, and that doesn't include the extensive outreach that the applicant did, which they'll talk about in their presentation. So the entitlements that are being requested for the gravel lot, the applicant is requesting a general plan amendment to change the general plan from its current designation of wetlands and marshland to mixed-use regional serving commercial, which is the same general plan designation as the village. Applicant is also requesting a rezoning, very similar, changing the zoning from parks, open space, and natural habitat to regional shopping district. Again, be consistent with the village. Also, one of the entitlements is the development agreement, which is what you folks have been working with the town manager and the applicants, and we'll talk about that in more detail. The RH Gallery itself they're requesting a conditional use permit to have the cafe, that's required. And also both the gallery and the gravel lot are requesting preliminary and precise plan amendments, and that's where the design review is incorporated. And so both the gallery and the gravel lot have gone through thorough design review through the Planning Commission and by yourselves, and looking at the design elements of both the gravel lot and the building itself, of course. So with that, I would like to hand next couple of slides over to Pat Collins. She is one of the consultants with GHD who worked on the environmental impact report.
Good evening, council members and everyone else. An environmental impact report, or EIR, was prepared for the project under the California Environmental Quality Act. An EIR in general is intended to serve as an informational document, and that's to provide information to both the public and you decision makers about the environmental effects of the project, about a reasonable range of alternatives to the project, and about feasible mitigation measures for any significant impacts that the project may have. Okay. Phil, you left me with this thing.
The right button. There it is.
Okay. Would you? Yeah, thank you. The EIR for the project did identify a number of significant impacts. They range from aesthetics to traffic, but all of the impacts are able to be reduced to a less than significant level through the application of mitigation measures. And then also, as Phil mentioned, a final environmental impact report was prepared. The town received 15 written comment letters. There were also 6 members of the public who spoke at the public hearing on the draft EIR. The responses are provided in the final EIR, and also the final EIR does include one correction to part of the traffic analysis.
And that's it?
Yes.
Thank you, Pat. And certainly Pat's available for questions when we reach that point. So just to give a little bit of, again, where we are, and perhaps if anybody has questions of me at this point during this project overview. So we've just completed the project overview through the environmental impact report, and now launching into the restoration hardware building itself. Any questions on the first third of the presentation?
Any questions? No.
Not now.
Down here? No? You're good to go.
Okay. So the restoration hardware building itself, or RH Gallery as we call it, is, as I said before, will be a retail store and cafe totaling 46,000 square feet. The maximum height of the building will be very, very similar to the Nordstrom's building at 46 feet. The cafe and retail will be on the ground level and the second level. I'm sorry, that's not correct. The cafe itself will be on the ground level. The retail will be on the ground level, the second level, and the third level. The rooftop loft will be up above, which will be open to the public and not just customers during the time in which the store is open. Of course, it won't be open when the store is not open, and the applicant will talk in more detail of that. The gallery building also, and part of the project also includes modifications to the existing lot. And I'll show those in a little bit. This is just some images of the west elevation. The top image there showing what you would see if you exited the gap and looking east. And then down below is a rendering of the west elevation. Oops. East elevation, again, the view up above is, maybe probably a third of the way towards the building in terms of the parking lot. Just gives you a little bit of perspective of the building size in relation to Christmas Tree Hill and in relation to Mount Tam. I'll show some visual simulations which show this a little bit more precisely in the future. Again, below is a rendering of the east elevation. Just backing up, the west elevation is the main entrance, which are the main doors right there in the center, though the architects have clearly designed this building not really to have a front, back, or side, but to have all four sides be as attractive and as the front. But this is clearly the main entrance. East elevation, as I showed before, and then the south and north elevations. Again, the design is to hope to step the building back to reduce massing and bulk with many layers and not just have one large monolithic wall. As you see, windows and doors on all sides. Visual simulations I talked about, these were part of the environmental impact report, so these were done by the consultant, not by the applicant. Gives you a little bit of perspective in terms of heights. The Nordstrom building, as I said, is 46 feet in height. The gap is approximately 34. The Banana Republic is now changing, but that building itself is about 34 feet. And our old beloved tower that's no longer there was 55 feet. And again, the gallery is proposed to be 46. This visual simulation is taken from, as you can see, just just east of the water and just east of Redwood Highway. Giving you a perspective of looking across to the west of Christmas Tree Hill and Mount Tam. Before I jump into that, just wanted to point out the model that the applicant has provided here. This was presented at the Planning Commission as well. It was out at the store numerous weeks before the Planning Commission meeting for the public to view. We asked them to provide this to give, again, a sense of scale and a sense of proportion of the building compared to the rest of the village. And then to the Councilmember Bailey's right are the materials boards, or the materials of the exterior of the building, ranging from the plaster, the paint, the windows, and various other treatments of the exterior. Okay, another part is the east entry modifications. So the east entry is the area just east of the gap, like east of where Banana Republic used to be. So this will be, this area will be enhanced by the project. It will become much more of a public space. It will have traffic calming devices to slow people down, slow cars down, to allow patrons to come and go from various parts from the Restoration RH Gallery to the village itself. Again, becomes more of an open and usable public space. There will be drop-off and pick-up areas created, and there will be additional landscaping as shown in this plan. In terms of parking lot modifications, just kind of want to give you a summary. There's a number of different spots where parking is either being added or being taken away. The big one, of course, is the gallery itself will take away 195 spaces. Loss of net parking for restriping and adding and moving things around will lose another 7 spaces. But then also approximately 30 or 36 spaces will be created by removing some drive aisles and infilling spaces where cars used to be able to drive through. And so new parking spaces will be created. And so the net change with all that will be a loss of 166 spaces. But as I showed in the slide before, there is a net gain in the total number of spaces and a net surplus over what's required by the code. With the next couple of slides, I'd like to hand it over to Bob Grandy from Fair and Peers. They are the traffic consultants that worked on the environmental impact report. Thanks, Bob.
Thank you. In the next 2 slides, I'm going to try and summarize the comprehensive amount of data that we collected and analyzed for the transportation assessment. So one of the first things we did is we collected daily counts on the key roadway segments around the project. We collected counts at all of the driveways to the village. Looked at weekday, we looked at Saturday conditions, and one of our first, about 80% of the trips coming from the village get on 101. So the other 20% are using other local roadways. So that was our initial concern, was how many of the trips are, during what time period are we looking at the highest set of impacts in terms of the combination of existing trips and project trips on Tamalpais and Lucky going to the west. And what we discovered based on the data that we evaluated was that was the weekday PM peak, 4 to 5 p.m. was the highest combination. We also discovered that the mid-afternoon on a weekday, around 3 to 4 p.m. when you'd expect a lot of school trips, was the second highest, actually higher than a Saturday, looking at those segments. So we added some intersections on Tamil Vista to evaluate those impacts. And so we looked at those 2 time periods. We looked at intersections, we looked at road segments, we looked at the freeway, 8 segments on Highway 101, and we looked at bicycle, pedestrian, and transit related impacts to those portions of the network. Well, we concluded the primary impacts and mitigations we identified. One, with respect to construction, there were a couple of different issues. One mitigation identified to prepare a construction traffic management plan. This is pretty traditional mitigation to make sure that the applicant or identifies the time of construction, when the vehicles will be coming in and out, what routes they're going to be using, those kinds of things. That would be prepared and approved by the town engineer. We also identified a parking management plan for construction because we don't know exactly what the length of time or the sequencing of all the different events is. There would be a parking management plan that would identify how those issues would be addressed, with a particular focus on if there's a loss of parking during the holiday season, how that would be managed during construction. And then the third item is we have the Bay Trail crossing along the east side of Redwood Highway. So we have a mitigation identifying the fact that that must be kept open at all times during construction. So those are the 3 construction-related impacts. From an operational standpoint, we identified an impact at the intersection of Tamalpais and San Clemente and Redwood, and with a requirement that the project make a fair share contribution. This impact and mitigation are consistent with what was identified in the general plan as it relates to the village center expansion that was evaluated as part of the general plan document. So it's not a new mitigation. It's consistent with that previous document. So that's an overview. I'll be here all evening, happy to answer any questions you might have.
Okay. So our next segment is a presentation by the applicants regarding the Restoration Hardware Gallery building itself. Now, if you want to ask any questions that come up for me before we launch into that, or
Any
hand it over to the applicants.
No.
over here? I just had one comment to make about the mitigation at that one particular intersection. That is something that's being discussed with a potential improvement for bike paths along the Tamalpais Drive overcrossing. So do we have any preconceived concept about what the timing might be for mitigations there, or is that conceivably something that maybe we could wrap into a future project?
Bob, if you want to, I can follow up.
So I mentioned the fair share contribution of the project.
Right.
The project doesn't actually trigger this mitigation. It gets triggered among the continuum of development of the village center expansion beyond this. So there is an opportunity. In other words, the project would be making a financial contribution. There's an opportunity beyond that when the next project comes along that would actually trigger the implementation to define exactly what this mitigation looks like and to make sure it's consistent with the interchange, with the plans that are being worked on with Caltrans for the interchange. So the
Got it.
answer would be yes.
Okay, thank you.
Just to add a little bit to that, Madam Mayor, when Nordstrom project was approved, they contributed to that mitigation as well.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
Three minutes.
Oh, well.
Give me a minute.
There it is. Okay.
Good evening. My name is Giancarlo Filartiga. I'm Vice President of Development for Macerich, the owners of the village at Corte Madera. Last time, I'm going to do a presentation similar to the presentation I made at Planning Commission a couple of weeks ago. That presentation lasted 13 minutes. I intend to beat that time frame with this one. Not 3 minutes, but we'll shoot for 10. And I'm here to talk about a couple of things that we keep the hand on the pulse and try to listen to what's going on in the community. And some of the message boards had questions regarding the village and how it operates, whether it's a success or not. I think one of the comments I recall reading said only Apple is the only retailer that is successful at the village. All the other ones are barely making it. Before I get started, I said I worked for Macerich, the owners of the village. Macerich is a retail REIT. All that we do is own malls. And we currently own 48 malls in major markets in the U.S. Our niche is to own malls and operate malls and develop malls in urban areas, in areas that are high level of entry, meaning that they become very unique properties. We, for instance, own Broadway Plaza in Walnut Creek, which was recently went through a development project, and you might have enjoyed. It's now open. We also used to own a lot more malls. In the last 7 years, we disposed of 20 malls. And the philosophy of Macerich is we try to keep only the best assets and keep reinvesting in our properties. And that's a differential factor with other owners. So the proceeds from the sale of those 20 assets, we reinvested in our properties, and the village is an example of that. In our world, in order to stay relevant, in order to be important and be in the game per se, we need to keep reinvesting and reinventing and refreshing our product all the time, and that's why we're here, because of restoration hardware for our age, which we believe will be a tremendous addition to the village. So putting the shopping center industry into perspective, I said the last time there are 116,000 shopping centers in the country. That includes all retail in the country. There are 595 regional malls and 607 super regional malls, which, it says we are about 1,200 malls in all of the U.S. In other countries, they have a lot less malls. And I think that's one of the phenomenons we're seeing right now in the U.S. is that the U.S. is perhaps over-retailed. And we're seeing that not only some retailers are either going into bankruptcy or closing stores, but also some malls. We believe that our portfolio is A-class level malls, and we believe that the A-level malls are here to stay and to prosper, providing that we can always keep them fresh and bring new tenants into the center. So there's a number of things going on in the industry. Of course, we all hear on one side that department stores are closing. Some of you may have read, the shopping malls are all dead. We don't believe that's the case. In fact, the good malls are getting better, and the bad malls are either being redeveloped or are going dark, which nobody wants, right? So we think that this mall, Village of Corte Madera, is one of the premier malls in the country. We know it's one of the best malls in our portfolio. Is what we would call an A-plus mall. Nordstrom, a few years ago, bet that this mall, they invested in this mall, and they did an expansion to their store, and Nordstrom now is one of this store of the Village is one of the best stores in the whole country. We believe that kind of project is what makes the Village sustainable and what makes it relevant. We also hear a lot about internet and of course the demise of a brick and mortar because of internet sales. And the last time I gave a couple figures, which later I heard that some people were surprised and put things into perspective. Online retail, e-commerce, over all the platforms, in 2016 represented only 8.2% of all retail sales that occur in the country. 8.2%, and this is out of trillions of dollars, of course. It is growing very strong. Last year it grew at 16.4%. This year is growing at 16%, but that growth is slowing. Next year it's scheduled to grow at a little bit over 15%. But it will keep growing, and we think that it will probably stabilize at about 20%. So if they are at 8.2% share right now, they will probably double. And there are a couple, and the main reason is that there are a couple of areas where they have not tapped into yet. There's e-pharma, and we all hear about Amazon maybe getting into the drug business. And there's e-groceries also, that is a brand new frontier. So we believe that online shopping will continue to grow, but that still means that about 80% of all sales will occur at brick and mortar stores. Just also to give a couple other figures, in California, the shopping center industry generates almost $27 billion in sales tax revenue. That was last year, and $3.2 billion in property taxes. Also, overall, the industry employs almost 13 million people directly. So that was my introduction on the evolving landscape, and that the village is a success right now, and that we want it to be relevant, and we need to continue to evolve.
Now try the remote.
Parking. Another comment that we noticed, the community being concerned, or a lot of chatting was about parking, and parking is critical to the village success. We are very conscious that we want to provide for our customers the best environment, the safest environment, the most convenient environment. We are, as Phil said, we are losing 166 spots right at the 50-yard line, let's say, of a mall. We are providing new parking on the gravel lot side, and we are also restriping the main parking area in order to provide some additional parking. We also, by the entrances, we are increasing, I think we're doubling the number of ADA parking spots. So if for those customers that are ADA, that need ADA parking, we will be providing more spots, and we're also increasing the number of bike racks. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't have
Good evening. I'm Stan Hoffman, manager at the Village at Corte Madera. Our community is very fortunate to be the home of two vibrant and successful first-class shopping centers, the envy of any community. I've been very fortunate to be part of this community since 1986, and I've had the two best jobs imaginable. 29 years as a manager at Town Center, and the past year and a half at the Village. The shopping center industry is constantly evolving and changing to meet the needs of our customers. We've seen a lot of changes in our community since 1986. Woolworths was replaced with REI, Montgomery Ward's was replaced with Safeway, JCPenney's was replaced with Container Store and Bay Club, all positive changes to meet the changing needs of our community. The shopping centers that adapt to the needs of their shoppers will continue to thrive, and those that maintain the status quo have and will become irrelevant. Nationwide, with countless retail stores closing each year, we are constantly searching for appropriate new stores and concepts to replace them. We feel that the RH project will be a tremendous success and addition to the Village in our town. RH is proposing a beautifully designed world-class building that will be beneficial to our center and our community. The village tenants are very excited about this project, and they feel that they will benefit from this addition. Over the past several years since the project was proposed, we have had numerous meetings with our community partners and have heard your suggestions and concerns. Based on your feedback, this project has been revised to what is being proposed today. We have followed all of the required steps asked of us, and we are confident that what we have proposed is very complementary and beneficial to our community. Most of the concerns on next door are related to parking. Yes, we are rearranging and relocating several parking spaces. To offset these changes, we're planning to have our village employees park in the north lot, freeing up additional spaces for our guests. In addition, RH is considering complimentary valet parking that would be available to any customer at the village. We are seeing Uber and Lyft replace independent drivers, which also frees up parking spaces, and we see more and more bicycle riders every day. While we don't anticipate inadequate parking for our guests, if needed, we will reintroduce our off-site holiday parking program for our employees, which takes place at Redwood High School. And that program was in place for many, many years until the gravel lot became available. As Giancarlo pointed out, the village is the crown jewel of the Macerich Company. We maintain the highest sales per square foot of all Macerich properties, and the village sales are the 8th highest per square foot in the United States. We are doing well. We're not going anywhere. But we don't want to bury our head in the sand and do nothing. We have to maintain, we have to be important to this community, and we have to change to meet the needs of the community. And we believe this project is a very good step in doing so. We hope that our town council and our neighbors will have the opportunity to look at what we're doing. There's been a lot of conversations prior to tonight. I hope you base your decisions and your position on what you hear tonight, not what you've been reading necessarily next door, which isn't, well, some of the information, there are different perspectives on. So anyway, we hope we'll be able to support our project. Thank you.
Thank you.
Switch over to yeah. Great. Thank you. Hi, good evening, Madam Mayor and members of the council. I'm Rob Eddington. I'm a Director of Development at Restoration Hardware. We go by RH now. I really am just going to do a brief introduction and turn it over to our architects to talk about the building. We do want to say thank you to staff and to the consultants for their hard work throughout this, and even to the community who's provided a significant output to us. I will talk about community outreach a little bit later, but it's been an incredible experience. It really has been fantastic for us as members of the community. We do have a current retail location in the village for our core furniture. We have a baby and child location, and our corporate offices are located at 15 Coke Road. We have about 500 employees there. So we feel like we are invested in the community, we partner with the community, and we intend to continue to be partners with the community. I would like to quickly introduce our team. We have Samina Sadeh, who is a design leader at RH. Wayne Chubb is here from out of town. He is an architect of record for us. We're honored to have Jim Gillum here tonight, who is with Backham, Gillum, and Kroger. He's our visionary conceptual architect and really important to us as a company. Gerald Tugati is our construction leader. Stu Wagner is a certified planner. Michelle Shepler is with our philanthropic and sustainability group. And we have Felicia Dean, who is with Kimley Horn, our civil engineers. With that, I'd like to turn the floor over to Samina. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Samina Saudi, and I'm with the Gallery Development Team, as Rob noted. And I'd just like to thank the mayor and the vice mayor and the town council, as well as members of the community, for their ongoing support and input in this project, as well as, really being a partner with us through the last several years of working through this project and being able to realize the building that we're all now seeing in this model and in this presentation. I just want to go ahead and briefly introduce RH as a company for those of you that are not familiar with it. And then I'll go ahead and have Jim up and have him help describe the project as a whole. For those of you that are not familiar with RH, we like to think of ourselves as curators of inspired design. So we started off as a small, high-quality fixturing company in 1979 out of Eureka, California. And now we are one of the largest home furnishing retailers in the world. We go ahead and adapt timeless classics and authentic reproductions of home furnishings, as well as curate new designs from some of the world's leading designers of furniture and objects. It's through this curation and strong vision that we showcase one of the largest collections of this type of product in the world. So you can go into our galleries and, like you can see in these photos, envision an entire space and room. And I think this is where we really set ourselves apart in the home furnishing retail world. We think of our spaces as a large curated home and an aspirational type of environment. We are obsessed with great architecture. We either find it or build it. So we take, this is a project that we did, or that we actually, we didn't do this project, but we leveled this project. This is the old Saks building in the Cherry Creek Mall in Denver. And this is really a vestige of what we considered, everyone would consider typical retail, a windowless, lifeless box. You enter the store, all of the lighting's controlled, the air is controlled, your whole experience is controlled. We took this building, leveled it, and went ahead and built a project like this. So, this project has access to great daylight. We have access to air. We have views in and out. There's great views of the Rockies. We have quaking aspen on the rooftop gardens. The courtyards at the base have fountains that trickle water, and we have landscape features. So these are all the type of things that we're introducing into our new projects, like the one in Corte Madera. This one's specific to Cherry Creek, and the aesthetic and vernacular of, maybe not vernacular, but the landscape elements and, the views that we have here in Denver. The project that we're proposing for Corte Madera would have its own take, and we'd like to bring something unique that responds to the environment here. Like I said, we either find great architecture or we build it. So really what inspires us as a company, and has been a labor of love throughout any project that we can find, or any city that we can find, are these large historic buildings. So this is an example of the old Natural History Museum in Boston. This is a project that Jim worked on with Gary Friedman, our CEO, and it's the first historic project that we took. We went ahead and restored all the interior detailing and finishes. We went through great lengths to really respect and celebrate the existing building, and brought it new life and longevity. We won some awards for this project. And this is another example of a project that we did in Greenwich, and it was the old historic post office It won a Kinetic Preservation Award, but it also won a national award. The next step in in this evolution is, like, you know, some of our partners at Macerich had noted, was, you know, keeping up with retail, where retail is going, and we feel like we're a leader in that, and we really have been focusing our newest efforts in integrating hospitality into our retail spaces. So responding to how people want to experience retail and how people want to use retail as a way to gather community. So we've, in Chicago, we not only took this historic 3 Arts building and restored it, but we also integrated a hospitality component to it. So we now have a restaurant that sits in the center. This was an open courtyard, and now it's an inspired space that has this beautiful skylight and has a full-service cafe similar to what you'll see in Corte Madera. And then I'd like to introduce Jim Gillum, and he can go through, you know, some of these projects he's worked on, as well as where we're going. Do you want me to start at Boston?
Please.
Or? Okay.
Thanks, Samina. It's wonderful to be here and to be involved with RH. It's been a real privilege to work on all of these projects for the last 8 years. I've lived in Marin County since 1970 and have been in this room at the same time Ernest Hahn was in this room, and we were doing the village. So it was a real honor to meet him at that time. And now it's an honor to have an architectural practice, first of all, at Sausalito and in Marin County with Howard Backen and Lauren Kroger. We do a lot of mixed use. We do all kinds of building types. But this is certainly the only retail type venture that we're involved with across the board. And I'm the only one in the firm who has been consistently working for the last 10 years on restoration. I certainly remember the first store. I remember going there on weekends to get my can of paint and my coat hooks and whatnot. And so it's been a huge turnover in terms of that building's use and this sort of new generation of buildings, of which the first building that I really worked on was the baby and child building in the shopping center. So I sort of cut my teeth with that. And since then, working with standalone buildings like Denver and this project that we're involved with, but also with preservation of old buildings like this former Museum of Natural History in Boston, downtown Boston, 1862 Civil War building built on cypress piles. So there's hundreds of stories that come from the old buildings. This one, and then the old post office, a small building in Greenwich, Connecticut, which won a National Trust Award for preservation and also for reuse of a building that is being sort of decommissioned at a large rate. There's so many post offices that are no longer post offices. We certainly set a good example with preservation and renovation and reconstruction of all the details in that building, as well as the former school for women in Chicago. This one is probably the most dense in terms of ideas. It incorporates for the first time food and beverage as a function in a way of energizing the interior of the building. But we have to work with landmarks groups across the country, in Chicago, New York right now, and Manhattan. We're working with the Landmark Preservation Commission. I have to make a presentation the first week in January for that new store. And we don't call it stores. Gary wouldn't let me call it a store. It's called a gallery. And it's gallery to the extent that, yes, it does have artwork. It also has the food and beverage, which has really changed the whole venue to the point where people consider it a public place and go there to relax and spend time, think about things. They have excellent services for design services. If you want to design your house or a room, you get all the help that you want. And the nice thing about this building, I think this is their most successful building, to be honest. It's something old, something new, is the preservation of the building from 1915 building in the Gold Coast side of Chicago. Very, very beautiful area in a residential area, old area. So you wouldn't have expected that it would be converted to something like this, but we did go through landmarks very extensively, all the preservation of details, terracotta, whatnot, and then reclaiming this space, which was an outdoor space, completely open courtyard in the winter, and put a glass cover over it so that we now have a two-story space. And from the second story, you can look down into this space. From the first level, you can mingle and move equally from one side to the other. We pride ourselves on circulation patterns through these buildings, including the building in Corte Madera that we've designed, so that we establish loops. And a loop is something that is continuous. It goes around, it keeps you going, and you never have to turn around and go backwards out of a room. And so we try to develop these patterns in the stores so that it really sort of energizes the whole thing. But this one is interesting because it does have food and beverage on the first floor, so it's easily accessible. We're going to have the same thing here in Corte Madera. And the interesting part is that this was a four-story building with a rooftop of outdoor furnishings. And Corte Madera is two-story with mezzanine on the roof, and that will be an open pavilion with just gorgeous views of Mount Tam and of the bay. And you know, in all types of weather, I think that this will be a compelling place for the public to come to, and I'm excited about that. So the scale of the building, we've tried to keep it down, obviously. We've tried to make it as compact as we can with all of the functions that Gary wants in a building like this, an important location like this. And I think the rooftop will be a wonderful place to visit. It'll be a garden environment. It'll be all about outdoor living. And the use of that space on top is going to be completely open to the public whenever this store is open. So I'm excited about it. It's in our backyard, so it's a very important project. We spent a lot of time on details and redoing details from project to project. So I think that, you know, the one thing about this is it's a modern building, but it has a lot of traditional detail in terms of trim, in terms of pilastering and all that. It'll have a beautiful finish, six coats of plaster, so it'll be 1.5 inch plaster with integral color, and the restaurant and outdoor courtyards that come off the second level will also be gardens with a lot of planting. So you're getting a glass-covered pyramid here, which I think will be very nice. I don't think I have anything else. I'd be happy to answer a question if someone has a question.
Thank you. Any questions? Over here? Jim.
For the outdoor space,
Yeah.
what sort of wind are you anticipating?
We're gonna get the wind coming down off the mountain. I know that one. We're anticipating it.
Okay.
I know that we had to design the glass cover in Chicago for hurricanes, okay. And we're very cognizant of that. So everything's going to have to be tethered, tied down, and bolted down and whatnot, but it'll still feel like a garden. Yeah.
I've got a couple of questions for you. You were done, right, Jim? Okay, thank you. I know that in our package and in some of the reports, there was mention of the fact that this is in the FEMA flood zone, 100-year flood zone, and that you have incorporated into the design not only raising it or having the foundation 1 foot above the required elevation, which is what FEMA requires, but also these removable or insertable steel, I guess, plates that would flood-proof the building. I wondered if you could talk a little bit about that and about whether or not even
Yes.
raising it up even more might
Certainly.
be.
I want to introduce Wayne Chubb, who's with Hobbs and Black, and is our architect of record, doing all the documentation, has been working with all the engineering folks, so
I get all the fun
maybe
questions.
you could answer this one.
So the window system is exactly as you stated. There'll be a set of channels, U-channels, on either of the doors and openings that you see throughout the building, and then the panel systems will be inserted then as part of the operations.
Was there any thought to consideration of raising the building even a little bit more in anticipation of maybe sea level rise or, increased king tides or anything like that?
Felicia's here from Kimley Horn. She could talk about it, but there was study in pulling the building up, but the ramifications of it throughout the rest of the site was deemed kind of unpractical.
Okay. All right. I've got a couple other questions. I'm not sure which one. A couple of the commenters that at the Planning Commission that I saw in the video and also in writing have asked about an eastern entrance for pedestrians. That's not currently part of this plan, so I'm kind of curious what your thinking is about that, and if, maybe in the future you decide that you want to open up the eastern side of the building to pedestrian access. Is that something that this design can accommodate?
Sure, yeah. I think I addressed this at the Planning Commission too. Is the mirrored side of what you're seeing here on the west, that central portion is showing some wooden gates.
Okay.
They're kind of dark in the renderings.
Right.
But all the other openings that you see, the 6 on either side, are the doors as you see on the west, so pedestrians could traverse off of the drive on both the east and the west.
Okay. But not on the, you say east and west, north and south? As well as east and west?
I said east and west, didn't I?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, the east and west.
Okay.
Make sure I said it
So
right.
where the kitchen is located doesn't,
It's in the central portion.
Okay.
Do we have the elevation up here? But you, at the top of the screen there.
got it. Okay.
So the mall entry
Is on the bottom of the screen.
Right.
at the bottom of the screen. So these doors here would be open during
Got
the
it.
day.
Okay.
They would be open so that people could pass through these loges here.
Got it.
As well as, the side loges and move through the project.
Okay, thank you. And then finally, I'm curious about restrooms. Of course, with restaurants and cafes, everybody wants restrooms, and I haven't heard that mentioned before.
Well, we're studying them where they go, but we know it's important to the program, so we're figuring out the balance between the pedestrian and the function. So
Okay.
I promise you, they will be there, and they will most likely exceed code. So
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Jim, did you, I'm sorry, Jim?
Yeah.
Might have one more question for you.
Well, to the gates you're putting down, are they manually controlled or?
yeah, they would be stored within the building.
So it would be
with manual. Somebody would have to carry them
Right.
and insert them.
And so if flooding's going to occur at night and no one's working,
It would just part of the operation system or program that was be developed for the building.
Okay.
I think the thought is that the flood isn't going to come out of nowhere, and that is part of the preparation for the building, similar to like the hurricanes that we have galleries in Florida.
Right. Okay.
We'd go into preparation mode.
Okay.
I can add to that as well. In Houston, our maintenance team was prepared for the hurricane, so they were in advance, and we're ready for that.
Okay, Any other questions? Okay, thank you. Phil, did you have anything else at this point?
I was just going to briefly talk
Oh,
about some
sorry,
of the
Rob.
community outreach. We did start the project in June of 2015, and these are some of the committees and groups that we met with. And the primary thing that came out of all of this was the community really wanted a food and beverage component. And that's, you've heard Jim and Samina talk about that, but what we wanted to do is just sort of emphasize that we did listen, we've been listening. We went back and we redesigned with a food and beverage component. We actually reduced our footprint by 30 feet. Which ended up taking about 15,000 square feet of retail out of the building. By doing that, we were able to actually bring 60 parking spaces back into around the building. We also reduced the height from 52 feet down to 46, which is the same height as Nordstrom. And then we added the loges, which sort of broke up that box-like type feel. We did elevate a camera to the height of where the rooftop garden would be. And this would be your view from our rooftop garden. So last thing we'd like to do is just play a short video of our Chicago store.
To blur the lines between residential and retail. The next logical step was, how do you blur the lines between home and hospitality? This was a location that we all knew was a long shot. I don't think there's a retailer on the planet that would have considered this location. But we thought, what if we take this old building that's been sitting here mothballed for 20 years and we bring it back to life?
This project is not separate from the traditional history of 3 arts. It's more a continuation of building a new chapter.
It was a building that was for young women to study the arts, the performing arts, the musical arts, and the visual arts. We thought we could bring some of those arts back to life. We could leave the historic stage and we could have musical performances here. We could do an RH contemporary art gallery on the top floor. And then we thought, and we can bring in the culinary arts.
If you really think about it, if I told you to define a restaurant, you would probably give me all these rules, right? And it's waiters or hosts and
Do you mind moving your mic
bartenders.
so you're picking
You
up
order and food comes out, all those things. And I didn't want any kind of reference point, really.
There's no hostess. There's no reservations. You can come sit down in the courtyard. You can sit down in the library. You can sit down up on the modern floor. You can sit down up on the roof. Everything you look at, you can buy. And everywhere you sit, you can eat.
I just want it to be almost residential in feel. If you could have amazing food at your house every single day, that's what this would be.
We want to be able to attract interior designers and architects here. And so we said, why don't we build a design atelier? It's an incredible design resource, from the window treatments to the rugs, to the furniture finishes, to the fabric finishes. It's all accessible and it's easy to start to concept and design your home.
Coming to RH now represents something that nobody would have predicted a few years ago.
This isn't really a retail space. This is a space where people come to start to imagine their life, right? Like what does their home look like?
It makes everyone pause when you experience it to consider new things. Think about the way we live. Think about the way we eat. Think about the way we want to interact socially. I think that's really what RH is all about, is looking for new ways of expressing lifestyle.
It's impossible to relate what this is unless you see it. You can try to describe it, but the greatest success I've had, I just stop talking and just invite them in and just say, come on, let's take a walk around. And everyone leaves saying the same thing, that this is amazing. And it is.
All of these things together, from the product to the integration of the hospitality and then the people, create something that is truly one of a kind in the world and is truly a field of dreams.
Thank you, and that would conclude our presentation.
Thank you.
Okay, and so the next segment of the presentation or the hearing is the public comment on the Restoration Hardware building.
Okay. Real quick, any other questions?
Aren't we doing questions later? Wasn't that on the agenda?
Yeah. After public comment?
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. I thought that, because I've been holding my questions.
Me too.
'Cause it said we were doing questions later.
Okay. That's fine.
Okay.
Well, we were going to do it later also, but all right. So I'm going to open it up to public comment. I want to remind people that we're doing this in 2 steps. This will be public comment on the RH building proposal. After we're done with public comment and questions from council and everything, later on in the evening, we will move on to discuss the gravel lot. If you have comments on the gravel lot, please hold them for that portion of the meeting. If you have to leave, and this is your only chance to talk about the gravel lot, feel free to come on up. But I just ask that you not take advantage and talk about the gravel lot both now and at that point. So I will allow 3 minutes for each speaker. I will ask that you state your name and where you live. And of course, we've got the timer on the screen. In order to move things a little bit more quickly, I would appreciate if you guys could kind of, keep the line moving. If somebody's speaking and there's nobody in line and you want to speak, go ahead and stand up. You don't all have to stand up at once, but let's just keep it moving. I don't want to have to sit here and wait for people to make their way through the crowd. Okay? I think I know who's going to be first. Hi, Lucy.
Hi, my name is Lucy McPherson. I've lived in Corte Madera all my life. Almost every week, my family spends time at the Corte Madera Town Center and the village in Corte Madera. And over my 11 years, I have watched the town center and village evolve and transform into a much more fun and welcoming place. For example, the town center has added lots of flowers, outdoor seating, and an outdoor fireplace. And likewise, the village has added lots of outdoor seating, outdoor heaters, and even water sculptures that little kids love to play in. I have visited the Restoration Hardware project site, and I have viewed the architectural plans and the story poles. I have viewed and studied the videos that show the elevations in the spectacular roof deck. I have attended the last Planning Commission and hearing. I understand the project. My first reaction to the project is welcoming, beautiful, spectacular, comfortable, and relaxing. The trees on the rooftop remind me of the gardens in Paris. It is obviously a place that I would like in Corte Madera, and I only hope that when I'm an adult, I can afford to shop there. I urge the town center to approve this project. Town council. And that way, by the time I'm in high school, I can go there and do my homework while I'm learning about the architecture and the home style. And I want to thank Carrie from the RH in Corte Madera for giving me a tour of the RH and for showing me the design studio. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Who wants to speak next?
Hey, Diane, you might want to ask him to queue up.
All right. Is there anybody who would like to speak? Great. Could the next person queue up? Let's keep this moving, please. But I think this gal in black raised her hand, so she's next. Thank you.
Hi there, my name is Averill Harrington. I'm a senior at Redwood High School, which is right down the street. If you don't know it, I'm sure some of your kids go there. I have lived in Belvedere, Tiburon for 10 years now. I grew up in Seattle but moved here. And when we first moved here, my family decided to start shopping at Restoration Hardware. And they decorated our entire house in it. And ever since then, I've kind of been in love with the store. We have been shopping at the Restoration Hardware and Village for many years now, and I personally love this store and having it in our own community here. I'm familiar with these plans for the new restaurant at Restoration Hardware, and I think it would be a great addition to the village and our community. So I do support these plans, and I hope that the Town Council approves this project. But moreover, I think that we need a place like this in our community. If you have any kids my age or even younger, you know that we're in a very digital age right now. We're all constantly moving through life, and that's understandable. There's a lot of innovation, there's a lot of projects, there's a lot of building. And I would love to have a restaurant that feels like home, where I can go with my own family, put down the cell phones, put down the innovation for a second, and sit and have a good time. And I think that this restaurant will be able to do that for our community. I think it's a beautiful place where I can do my college apps, which are very stressful, and I think it's a beautiful place where I can go and enjoy with my own family, with my friends, and be present in the moment, because I think that is so important to have right now in our community. And while there are many restaurants and many places around, I don't think anything compares quite to the beauty and elegance that Restoration Hardware will provide with their new building. I believe that anything Restoration Hardware has done, they have done with elegance, pride, perseverance, and many great qualities that I think they will also exhibit in this new building. So I hope you approve it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi. My name is Donna Hetrick, and I live at 21 Wildflower Drive, and I've lived in Corte Madera for 18 years. I'm opposed to the Restoration Hardware expansion project in the village. 160 lost parking spaces in the village is not acceptable. Retail business is drastically changing, and why would you want to jeopardize the business of the existing stores in the mall by taking away valuable parking spaces which make it convenient for customers? Those spaces are valuable on a normal day, and during the holiday season, it is impossible. Beautiful marketing pieces on your Boston and Chicago, and I applaud you on your efforts, taste, and creativity. But that's not what's happening here. I don't see the correlation. I think you could find a historic building in San Francisco and do a similar take. There's been many articles in San Francisco Chronicle lately on the struggle of retail space. It's struggling and times are changing. How we shop is changing, our free time is valuable, and the convenience of shopping online is not going away. I don't agree with online purchases will level off at 20% in the next few years over brick and mortar. I think it will increase and potentially force all those not in both brick and mortar and online presence to go away. How are you going to fill the existing spaces when that change occurs? There are vacant malls and strip malls all over America, and it's a horrible and ugly. We know it will never happen to the golden soil of Marin County, but be careful what you wish for. There are plenty of businesses coming and going from the village on what feels like a monthly basis. Can't Restoration Hardware expand and redirect what's already there? I'm a manager at Nordstrom and personally lived and worked through the 2.5-year, $61 million remodel of our local store, which in Nordstrom terms is a postage stamp size compared to its fleet. I do know at the time they desperately wanted to go taller and wider. They wanted to extend the footprint of the building out even further into the front parking lot, property of which Nordstrom owns, and offered to pave the gravel lot and possibly build a parking garage to accommodate the loss in spaces and actually increase the parking spaces. The city wouldn't give them permission to extend out because of the loss of parking spaces, and said the gravel lot couldn't be paved for fear it would harm the bird estuary in their ecosystem, marshlands, possible flooding problems, etc. You would not let Nordstrom's, an anchor store selling millions of dollars out of our store, expand, yet just a few years later you're giving away the land and valuable parking spaces to a furniture showroom. We suddenly don't care about the birds and the flooding. And compared to Nordstrom's or Apple's walk-in business, I'm curious about the sales tax the city will benefit, if anything, since the furniture is shipped from a warehouse somewhere to its destination. We don't need more retail space in the village. We need parking spaces to make it convenient and accessible to our community. I avoid Larkspur Landing, or the Mart, at key times for their parking issues. This is simply lost business for those establishments forever. If the customers can't get to the store loses business, store closes. Amazon and UPS may be
Your
our
3
only
minutes
options
is
in the
up.
future. I hope the city does the right thing and stops this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Thomas Lurston, 600 Oakdale. I wanted to pick up what an earlier speaker called mitigation and fair share contribution. And I think that's super important when we're talking about any developments of this scale in either mall, because obviously the two malls sort of dominate the landscape in our town. And in particular, the phenomenon, what I call holiday gridlock, where people circle for parking in one mall and then drive over to the other side and circle for parking in the other mall. I think a great solution for this is pedestrian bike overcrossing, and I think both malls should be sort of prompted to help mitigate this the parking and traffic problem with a fair share contribution to an overcrossing.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Hayden Ongaro. I am the chair of Marin Economic Forum. For those of you who don't know, Marin Economic Forum is a public-private partnership with the mission of helping our local businesses, both large and small, thrive and grow and stay in Marin. Thank you. So we have met with RH and we've met with Mace Rich. We've looked at the plans, and this is a project that we support. It's a stunning development. I have attended other meetings where Planning Commission and City Council people are presented projects, and they basically send the applicant back to the drawing board and say, you can do better. In this case, this is just an unbelievably beautiful project. It's state-of-the-art. Growing up here in Marin, going to high school here, I've seen that transition of doing shopping in downtown San Rafael before the malls were built, then Northgate. And retail is evolutionary. The Village is a fantastic center, but it needs to stay relevant. And the fact that one of our largest employers has stayed in Marin when it's hard to hire employees and stay and recruit people here. And they have 500 employees in Corte Madera, and they want to make a huge commitment in our community here, which is not only reflective of, you know, a good thing for Corte Madera, but I think something all of Marin can be proud of, because it is state-of-the-art. To mix food, to mix beverage with retail is at the forefront, and you know, I'm just happy that Restoration Hardware is here in our community, and Marin Economic Forum supports their project. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening, Mayor, Council members. My name is Robin Sternberg, and I'm here today as a resident of Kentfield and also as the CEO of Marin Economic Forum. And as Hayden mentioned earlier, just now, we have together looked at this project, and it's our job to have an unbiased economic analysis, a data-driven economic analysis on what will enhance our economy here. And so we have looked at this, and Hayden spoke about the merits of the quality of the project and the innovation aspects of it. I want to talk a little bit about the other economic benefits, and specifically, we sat down and asked Restoration Hardware to talk about their employee base. One question I always like to ask is, how many of your employers live in Marin? I was pretty surprised. 217 of their employees live in Marin. That's almost half, and that's way above average. And they described to us how they like to hire local people. And that's really, I think, important. So imagine, I'm sure the 217 Marin residents, if they were here today, that they would say they'd want this project to go forward because they depend on their livelihood for the success of the company. So the other thing that I was interested in researching was how they act as a corporate citizen here. And it was pretty surprising to hear about or to learn about how they've contributed to the community over time. Some of their major things that they support is their commitment to education, and they're one of the top contributors to Schools Rule. They also have donated generously to the Corte Madera Centennial Celebration. They are a leader in the Corte Madera's Zero Waste Effort by the 2030 Zero Waste Effort Initiative. And they also have an employee match program for fire disaster relief. And the list goes on. I mean, they're one of the most generous corporations that we have here. And they are investing in their own backyard, listening to the community, and bringing all the amenities that the community is asking them to bring, which I think is really, they're being really responsive and respectful. So regarding the project itself and jobs, this project will create somewhere between 60 and 70 new jobs, and we are already talking about how to help them identify local workers for those jobs. So I'm really excited about that because I think the live-work relationship, having the ability to have people in our own community work near their job is important and
3 minutes.
Beneficial.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who'd like to speak? Come on up. Let's keep things moving, please.
Resident of Carol Berg, resident of Corte Madera for over 35 years. 2 concerns. One compliment. The architecture is gorgeous. It's spectacular. It looks more like a resort than a retail store, and that's a great compliment, I think. But I do have a concern. The parking before Veterans Day was horrific here, and I come here frequently. I circled round and round and round, and finally I gave up. So I can anticipate, while the building is going on, what's going to happen with parking. And also, this side, the Redwood Highway, gets a lot of traffic for the Richmond Bridge at 3 o'clock. I see it's backed up, and it goes to the Richmond Bridge. So how do you handle that? And then at the last meeting I attended, it was said that if there's too much parking is difficult, we would go over to Redwood and wait for a bus. And I may have misunderstood that, but I, for one, would not want to go to Redwood Highway and wait for a bus to transport me over here. Last comment. What about the noise abatement while this is going on? Because there's people, there's residents, retail stores. What happens while that is going on? Is there an answer? I don't know. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, council members, Madam Mayor. I'm Phyllis Galanis. I live on the bay side of Corte Madera, and my office is over here on the Mount Tam side. And I say Mount Tam because that's one of my favorite things to look at. We have a great view from our home. I have a view from my office. And the building, while it is a great design, it is going to impact the view of Mount Tam for people who are walking along the path that you've said you're going to keep open. You have to keep open while you're constructing the construction period. And so you say, well, you can go up to the roof garden and see it. And that everyone's welcome to go up to the roof garden, which is quite nice, to go up and sit on your furniture that you want to sell for outside furniture. I mean, your marketing is great. But for those of us who don't want to go into a store of any kind, to be able to see a view that we can see just by walking down a path, which we are enjoying, that's not okay. The roof garden, you also said you were going to plant some trees. That'll further erode the view. The slide that you showed with the building and Mount Tam above, that's not coming from someone who is standing at ground level and looking out. So it's deceptive. You said that you've put up story poles and signs, et cetera, posters showing what you're going to do. And they've been, except for the parking lot, they've been really inadequate. And so I think that that's not being transparent on your part. You didn't want to put poles up that would really show something, or you didn't want to put mesh between them, because you would have had to put extra poles in parking spaces, and you didn't want to disrupt parking spaces now for the holiday shopping time. You're going to take away over 160 spaces. Why not have let people get an idea as to what they were going to be facing when you put your huge building in the middle of the parking lot? And saying, okay, well, now you're going to be able to park way over here. Well, we already park way over there. So you are not exactly adding parking places that we don't use or that we don't have. You're taking away prime parking places. And yeah, I think that matters. And I'm sorry that that's part of your plan. I love it when you repurpose buildings. You've done a great job in that. And I know you had pushback for those buildings too, but
Thank you.
I'm
3
sorry,
minutes.
I don't support this one here for this time.
Thank you.
Hi, Pat Ravazio, 427 Oakdale Avenue. While I was doing my holiday baking today, I wrote Pat's top 10 reasons why this is a great idea for Corte Madera. But I'm not going to read all of that because actually I already posted it on Facebook if you want to go find it there. But number one, it's great for Corte Madera financially. Number two, it is smart thinking and design. The idea of putting the building where it is will help create a more cozy type village feeling for the shopping mall, which is what our shopping malls are now trying to do, be like the old-fashioned downtown places that we all love so much. And the only better thing would be putting you in downtown San Rafael, but that can maybe be your next store. They will give us a valuable new community asset in this gathering place. We have it in Cafe Verde. We did a community cafe over here. I sort of see this as the one for the bay side of town. It'll be a beautiful thing. As a 28-year resident of Corte Madera, I'd say traffic is only a problem for those who don't know how and when to shop in Corte Madera. Tuesday mornings, 10 a.m., you can park anywhere. You just don't go on the weekends, especially during the holidays, and if you do, you walk or ride your bike. That is the magic pass to go anywhere. And our, let's see, number 5, not just a chain, a cornerstone flagship store for an excellent brand that provides many local jobs and more professional level jobs, which is what we need to help balance our bedroom community. People keep wanting to add housing here, but we already have lots of housing, we have no jobs. So the more jobs that can be put here, the less we have to drive into the city and so forth. Number 6, all development is not bad. I know that we have made some mistakes in the past. I think the environmental aspects are paramount, and this one has few, since all we're doing is converting an already paved area into a beautiful building, and then the parking lot is already gravel anyway. The company at number 7, company has proven itself very receptive to listening and helping with regards to the bicycle pedestrian overcrossing, which we're now working with Caltrans on. I'm actually the instigator of a little community committee to create a pedestrian bike pathway. And our volunteer architect is Skidmore, Owings and Merrill, who has Craig Hartman, one of their top designers living here in the town. And he's volunteered to help. And maybe we'll do a meeting soon where he can present his ideas for a Corte Madera loop, which would actually run alongside the Tamalpais overcrossing, but then drop down into the malls, and then right at where you have positioned your store would shoot over 101 and land right in front of the Bay Club. Just a simple Amsterdam-type bridge. Anyway, I hope the town council will, oh gosh, and one more thing.
Thank you, Pat.
Okay, one more thing, I'm gonna take 20 more seconds. I really want this design, I'm sorry, no, I'm gonna say it. No, I've been a volunteer here for 30 years. I'm gonna say it. We need solar panels or wind. I need this to be an energy sustainable thing. You know what? I'm sorry. I'm going to say this. I'm sorry I went long. I said great things about this project. I am going to have my say. Sorry I went so long.
The gravel path.
I've been a volunteer here for a long time.
Right, let's, if everybody could please quiet down, let's start up again. Everybody gets 3 minutes, and I'm sticking to it. Thank you. Please state your name and where
Thank
you're
you.
from.
I'm Lisa Spangler. I live at 34 Redwood Avenue in Corte Madera. I grew up in this town, and I remember being a little child and Mrs. Terwilliger bringing our mothers and ourselves down to the marsh where Mr. Hahn wanted to build a shopping center, which was going to be very large, and the town did the right thing cutting it back. So far, the mall has worked out well for our community. However, it looks like it's expanding in the last 5 years with Nordstrom and now this building. It's a beautiful building. I don't quite think it goes with the rest of the architecture, but I know they want it to stand out. Of course, you have a top architect working on it, and I commend you for what you've done to historic buildings. And yes, I'd like to see you do one in the city, but this is your home. My main concerns are about the gravel lot and the wildlife around there, because that's what really was the concern when this originally went in. And with flooding, okay, you're going to take care of your building. What about the rest of the community? And we are on top of that, but I just like to say that. The other thing that I see with this, and I just have to say that Cafe Verdi is a lot different from what you're proposing here. So just don't talk about needing more centers to, gather in. Although, if that's nice that the people from Tiburon and Ross go there, but my main concern is traveling from west to east Corte Madera if I have to get over there. A lot of times it's very crowded. And the woman before me spoke that the best time to shop is at 10 a.m. on Tuesday. However, a lot of us to live in this community do work. So I would want you to really consider the traffic implications, and that is also mitigated at the same time that this is going to happen, because I work in Mill Valley, and it can take me an hour to get home on 101 at times because of the traffic. And if I have to make an errand, thank God that Safeway and the pharmacy are on this side where I live. Okay, that's all I want to say. I do commend you. You're fabulous marketing people. You've got top A stuff. Just don't forget the people of Corte Madera, and it looks like you haven't, but this is way above what I need. I can't afford your furniture, but probably can't afford your restaurant either. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Like Bob, especially the shrubs that are on the southernmost corner of the southernmost driveway. I'm concerned that it will impede sight lines to the south. I would like to see Macerich maybe enforce more stringent employee parking year-round. Maybe designate employee parking both at the gravel lot and maybe some of the lesser-used portions of the southern parking lot down by Macy's. That would free up some of the center areas for our shoppers. I'd like to ensure that Mace Ridge takes safety very seriously out of the gravel lot, especially for employees, you know, that are getting off work later. You know, offer them, you know, guides, security to escort out to the gravel lot. And we're going to have to come up with another name for gravel lot, I guess. I'm trying to get through this as quick as possible. I want to remind folks that the deal that was struck in 1995 means that that is parking in the gravel lot in perpetuity unless we change the agreement with Mace Ridge. So for people to say, oh, it should be marshland, guess what? We don't have that option right now. But with this development agreement, it'll be improved, water runoff will be improved, and it'll be less detrimental to the bay and Shorebird Marsh. Plus, the town will get some much-needed funds. I would like to see some viewing opportunities out at the outer edges, a bench with a spot for wheelchair accessible folks. We've got a couple of those around town at various strategic spots. I think that would be really helpful, maybe in a couple of locations. I do not want to see a 4-foot high chain link fence. I feel really strongly about that. You don't need a 4-foot chain link fence to keep folks out of the marsh. I'm not sure 36 would do it, but I bet 42 would. And maybe we could do something like a wooden deer fence with, you know, dark deer mesh or split rail or something just to keep the dogs from going out there. But I think a chain link fence would really kind of destroy the whole look out there of what we're trying to accomplish. So I'm concerned that, and now we're coming up on 10:30, how we're going to proceed with this. We obviously have some concern about zoning. We could take a straw poll to see if that's just one person or more. But I have heard at least a couple of very strongly worded concerns about the design of the gravel lot, and I'm wondering if we can get through some of this tonight, but maybe reserve the design of the gravel lot, the final decision on the design of the gravel lot renovations in future. Is there any way we could do that?
Well, I think if we take the actions on their own, I think the path conversation ultimately comes down to, I think, one point of clarification. I think from an environmental standpoint, really the path has to be inboard of the current boundary of the gravel. Otherwise, there's a need to analyze also its impact on the environment. So that path would have to, I don't know if we have be sort of within the existing gravel area. So,
right.
So all right, and just to be clear on that. So, but I think there. So if that's the assumption, we're really looking at that as as I'm thinking right now, as a design review aspect of the project. There may be, we would also, I think that would be the only thing I could think of, unless I'm going to hear that there's some need to reanalyze from an environmental standpoint, that aspect of the project.
Okay, can I hold that thought for just a second? We're 10:30. Would somebody like to make a motion to extend 30 minutes?
Moved. We're extending this thing like popcorn. I mean, how many times have we extended an hour? We didn't say. They said an hour. I didn't say an hour. Okay, one more time.
So, Carla moved. Are you seconding?
I'll second it.
Thank you.
But can we wind, because we have to finish the other item too.
Councilmember Andrews.
Oh, yes.
Councilmember Bailey.
Yes.
Councilmember Ravazio.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Condon.
Yes.
Mayor First.
Yes. Okay.
Okay, so it was looked at in response to comments in the FEIR. So as long as the path, we're talking about met 5 criteria that we identified in the FEIR, no additional analysis would be needed. So, so I think we could clear that hurdle. And so my thought is that it really comes down to a design review issue, and the design review application would be impacted by that change. So that being said, it would impact parking, as we know, in terms of the number of spaces provided. And that impacts also the development agreement, obviously. So that's something that I know Todd and Judith are more familiar with than I in terms of what those discussions have been. So if the council still wanted to pursue that, I think you could move forward on the environmental impact report and certification. The other actions related to general plan and zoning ordinance amendment for the gravel lot could also move forward. Obviously, I think to respond a little bit, if the general plan was going to change, that would actually have to go back to the Planning Commission and be noticed and all sorts of things like that. So it would be an involved process to change that aspect of the project.
Got it.
But the general plan and the zoning ordinance could still proceed. And then we're talking about the preliminary plan also could be acted upon. That sets out the uses, the general use and the floor area allotment and so forth for the village. And the precise plan would be which includes the design review, which would be sort of held back. Sort of looking for confirmation a little bit on that, but that's my, I believe that those actions could proceed and the path would hold up the preliminary, the precise plan, which includes the design review application.
So just to clarify briefly, in the FEIR, in the 5 conditions on which potential path around the perimeter of the gravel lot was cleared, is it would have to be on the town property in the gravel lot, and therefore it reduces the parking. There was a discussion of a 4-foot lot, but actually Bay Trail, the minimum is more like 12 and they prefer 18. So there'd have to be a significant look at to what that trail width would be and how many spaces that actually would remove, and then the DA couldn't be approved because it was premised in all the negotiations, and the price was on Macerich and the shopping center getting 452 or up to 455 spaces. In this case, they've requested 452, and certainly the economics of that deal between the town and Macerich were premised on the number of parking spaces, and again, the environmental amenities being there, like the trees and the bioswales and all of the water retention. So that would have to be a significant reopening of negotiations for that.
Mayor, Council, may I add respectfully just 2 cents, and when we have a few minutes left, and this does, for you, Judith really succinctly said this, but it changes our development agreement, and I just wonder, just hearing the comments of the council, the way I did, if I heard you right, I think from the general plan amendment, I hear Councilmember Andrews, and I think other council members have a similar feeling. I think it's how other agencies are going to use our numbers against us, and I know that. But as you relate to this project, we don't, right today, by approving it today, we're not worried about someone building housing on there. We're protected. But I think I hear the council, absolutely, this is an issue, and if council so wishes, either now or when we get to the agenda quickly, to direct staff as an exigent circumstance to bring the housing general plan conversation back to you in an expedited way, we'd be happy to do that. I just don't know that we're at risk in this moment by doing that, again, by setting this process back. And again, I think on the traffic safety, I think there are things that we can go back to as staff And the pathway maybe, I mean, there's a lot of, it just opens this Pandora's box and takes us down months of process again, that I wonder maybe working with the BPAC and Macerich and just staff of, are there improvements that we can do additional through that corridor?
Well, I mean, may I, Diane?
Sure.
Let's just examine briefly. I see 4 problems, and maybe we can just work through them now. Problem number 1 is the path, right? I don't know what Macerich thinks, but I would be willing to bet if they give up 4 to 7 spots, they're probably indifferent to that. I don't know. Who cares, right? But I don't know if doing that and is A, possible to do on the spot, or B, if we're accomplishing the path that we need. I don't know. I mean, you guys tell me. If we, first of all, I'm in favor of the path. Great. I'm probably not in favor of it if it's a dramatic difference. Giving up 4 to 9 spaces, I mean, who cares, right?
I would agree with that completely. If it's got to be 12 or 18 feet wide and it's going to take out, 100 spaces or something like that.
It's ridiculous.
I can't, but in exchange, I think we do need to take an extremely careful look at these 2 intersections as currently designed and look at things like, mandatory pedestrian crossings, red light arrows like the one we put up over by Tamridge Apartments. There has got to be a ton of safety improvements made on those 2 things. Because again, that is a primary route for kids going back and forth to school. They're going to be driving across a parking lot that we are now funneling an additional 160 people into on a daily basis through those 2 intersections. And we're going to be pushing kids through there. So we need to really pay attention to how that is done and make sure we do it correctly.
So we have an issue. Issue number 1 is we have whether we do a path. I think Diane and Bob are in favor of this thing. Do you want a path if it can be managed, or you don't care?
Hold on, I don't want you to characterize me.
I'm sorry.
I would love a path, but I recognize it's probably impractical at this point to do it. But I would like some kind of access, like a couple of little benches, so that people can sit out there and, have a cup of coffee and watch the birds.
If I could perhaps find a little bit of clarity as a cyclist and a pedestrian, Commissioner Ravazio, in terms of safety at this particular intersection. So this particular intersection exists for pedestrians and bicyclists, and currently it's much more dangerous because you can do left in and left out.
Right.
With the proposed project, this intersection is going to become safer.
Yes.
I think we're all in agreement.
Understood. But it's also going to have a lot more traffic force through it when all this improvement is done. And
Absolutely.
all I'm saying is, let's take it to the Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee and review the intersections and the safety improvements and make the necessary safety improvements that we need to make. We don't need to get into the detail on it now. If we can do it later, right?
Sure.
So what does that mean that we can't approve tonight then?
Yeah, I'm just trying to clarify.
I didn't say we can't approve it. I'm saying we can.
So.
But then how do we make sure it happens?
Hold on. You said 4 things. Let's work through the first and let Bob finish this. Bob, do you recognize that at this point it's probably impractical to hold out for a pathway around the perimeter?
It's going to be 12 feet wide, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Path is out, increased safety at the driveways is in. You good with that?
I'm not sure that's what Bob's saying.
I think you just said.
Fine.
So, but the way it is now, there's no path of any kind.
Right, but it's probably impractical because I think Judith
I
is
thought a
right.
path-
The Bay Trail is going to want a width that is impractical to put in this parking lot. It's going to take too much
That
real
kind of
estate.
path may be impractical. What I thought I had heard is a path which would provide some safety to our pedestrians and so forth, even if it doesn't match what's desirable by the umpty umps on this, would be accomplishable.
Talking about a 4-foot wide pedestrian path.
Yes.
Right?
I thought that's what you were going for, Bob. If you don't care.
That would provide access and maybe have some benches and let people walk around the outside of it. And
Yeah,
enjoy
if
the
you're,
marsh.
look, you're the bicycle pedestrian. If you guys don't care, I'll go with you. I'll follow your lead. I thought that was a minimum.
I would be all for, if it's possible, doing some kind of pedestrian access to the outside of the parking lot, which I think is what Diane is talking about, making it easier for people to walk out there and enjoy the march.
Well, I was just thinking a couple of spots, not necessarily the entire perimeter, but I think they hear us. We want some little spots. Yeah, or maybe even closer in, so that people don't have to walk clear through the parking lot to get all the way out there. So like one on the left, just past the rain garden, one on the right, just past the rain garden. Just
Yes,
put a bench, you know?
Inviting people to enjoy the marsh. In the
Exactly.
parking lot, I think, is a really good improvement.
No, but I'm just stuck on a mechanical side to this. What can we do tonight, right?
I know the path, I'm hearing it, from a safety standpoint and a practicality, because we talked about this as staff after the BPAC, people are gonna go from the quickest way to point A to point B. They're not gonna take that pathway around there, they're gonna go across. Now, I know leaving alternate routes, that's important. I hear you loud and clear on, are there things that we can do to improve those two intersections? I think there are, we can, I think at this point, we're changing the development agreement. I think it's problematic.
Okay.
Right. I think when we get into a discussion of a path, there's a lot of other considerations. One of the things, if we're worried about safety of people crossing the intersections, I think the trade-off may be some safety considerations of a too narrow width path, or a path that has to have other security measures once you get out to the exterior and close at certain times. I'm not sure, but there's a lot of other considerations I think that would need to go into that. May also affect design issues and get into other things.
So Bob, are you okay with a couple of benches without a path?
Yes.
Can we get a couple of benches?
Okay.
ADA accessible?
Figure that out.
Like, have a spot next to it, ADA? I'm thinking literally one on the right by the rain garden, one on the left by the rain garden, and maybe one all the way out.
Make it inviting.
3 benches.
Make it look at what, again, Target, San Rafael, there's benches, they overlook the bay, they're beautiful. People
Yeah.
sit on them, they walk out there, they enjoy it. You have an opportunity to do that here, let's take advantage of it.
All right. Path is out.
Okay.
I saw some nods. I think
Okay,
we
good.
heard that probably some benches could be accommodated.
Okay.
And I don't think we need to change the development agreement to get that.
No.
Do you all agree?
Yes.
Good.
I think
Okay.
we've been heard.
Issue number 2, fence. I mean,
I really
Audubon
have a
wants the
hard time-
fence. Can we do like a crappier
Whatever
version
the
of fence?
minimum is, we have to do.
We don't have to do a fence. So I said, right? We
What do you
can
think,
approve
Carla?
this with no fence.
Correct.
You're
but-
pro-fence or anti-fence?
If all of a
Hold
sudden
on.
Audubon comes
Hold
back.
on. Hey, you two,
Sorry.
hold on. I was
Does
trying to speak
Restoration
with
Hardware
one at a
sell
time.
fences?
Jim, one at a time, please. We can approve this with no fence.
Correct.
And can that come back to the council if a revised fence design was maybe something that the applicant wanted to consider?
Yes, yes. A revised fence design, yes. The particular fence, though, I will say, was looked at from an environmental standpoint. It sounds a little bit crazy, but it was in terms of the actual type of fence that was there, the height of it, and the location, because that all mattered from an environmental standpoint.
Yeah, I read it in the FEIR, it has to do with dogs being able to access the marsh. I mean, so-
Right, but as long as you have something that prevents a dog from getting through, and that could be a deer fence, but it could be wood rather than a cyclone
Yes,
fence.
yes,
It
yes.
does not have to be
Yes.
an eyesore of a
Doesn't have to be
chain
ug-
link
Doesn't have to be
fence.
ugly.
And I'm
Right.
guessing it all,
You could do some.
and I'm hoping it could be something shorter than 48. So if the town council wanted something slightly less than 48 that would prevent dogs from getting out there, but was maybe slightly more aesthetically pleasing than a chain link fence, would you advise us to approve this tonight with no fence, asking for a revision, a new fence design, or should we approve this tonight with the fence, and then hopefully it will come back with a different design? What do we do?
No, I think you could come back with I think it could come back as a condition of approval that the fence is proposed again. If it comes down to whether or not you want to see the ultimate design of the fence. So you can approve it with a condition of approval that they come back to add the fence as part of a either staff level review, and give direction that it's has a better design, so to speak, a more aesthetically pleasing design than a cyclone fence, and shorter.
Okay.
And we could take that and run with it.
Got it. Does that work for you?
Sure.
You guys were chatting. I'm trying to.
Well, because I don't get a
Come
sense,
back now.
I'm not even clear what the hell we're doing now. I thought that we can't, anything that we don't insist on tonight, we need to acknowledge the fact may not happen.
Right.
So that means that if we don't insist on a path, okay, I want you guys to warm up to the idea there may never be a path, okay? And then the fence. If we don't insist on a fence, okay, that we all need to warm up to the idea there may never be a fence, right?
But we make it a condition that they come back to staff and they work with staff on the design of the fence. And you're like, that's within the parameters of what we can do.
Okay, so that's the first one that we want to add to resolution numbers 54, 55, 56, 57, or ordinances 973, 974.
Well-
What is that a condition to?
Would be the condition.
There'd be two, you would add two conditions of approval. And in this document, the conditions of approval they're identical. One is in one of the resolutions and one's in one of the ordinances.
No, but
It'd be
I'm
in
specific-
56,
okay,
Resolution 56, 2017, which relates to the preliminary and precise plan amendments and design review.
So
What's the
just
other one?
56.
Just 56.
No,
Okay. Carla, I wanted
The
to
ordinance
just
as well has
finish you
the
off
conditions
too.
of approval.
You good, you okay with this?
We put it in two spots.
Yeah, but I think that as we go along with this, we're going to find out why it was specified 4 foot rather than a 3 foot, or rather than a 6 foot. There is probably some logic
And I would like
behind
to
it.
leave that to staff to attempt to work out. Because we're not going to be able to work it out tonight here. But at least this gives you something to start with.
Yeah,
Sure,
we've been having,
whatever.
Does that work?
Yeah,
we've been having
I mean, I
ongoing
didn't have a
dialogue
problem
with
the
Marin
4
Alban,
foot
and we can.
cyclone fence, so.
Jim, I kind of cut you off too. You want to finish what you wanted to say?
I lost what little train of thought I had.
I know, it's getting late.
Okay, if we want a fence, we need to specify a fence be in there, but we don't like the designs. Do you guys have a fence design in your catalog?
Okay, let's keep the conversation here.
Dude, I'm not voting again, so
Fence.
we all need
Am I the
to
only one that
be clear.
doesn't want a 4-foot fence?
I don't think it needs to be 4
Cyclone
feet high.
fence.
I don't think it needs to be 4 foot
I
high.
think it could probably be 3 foot high, but I think staff can figure it out.
Okay.
They can
Got it.
figure it out. They've
All right.
heard us, they know what we're interested in, they'll figure it
And
out.
56 is the only one we need to change. Thank you.
Third problem, zoning.
Do I,
Straw- Can we take a straw vote?
Can I ask a question first?
Sure.
I want to make sure I understand the zoning concern, which is that if we designate it as such, your concern is that when they do the regional housing needs allocation, they're going to look at this land and say that's land that could be put on, and they're going to stick us with more housing, correct?
Yeah,
Do I have that? Okay, I wanted to make sure I
that's
understood.
the essence of it.
Yes, okay, I wanted to make sure I understood that was your concern.
And just to be clear, it's not the zoning designation that I think is at issue, it's the general plan
general plan.
land use designation.
Okay,
So-
thank you, yes, okay.
But could that, in the future, be changed with the agreement of Mace
Absolutely.
Ridge?
Yes, absolutely, it's the
As
towns.
an
it's
amendment to
also-
the development agreement, perhaps?
I don't even, yeah, I mean, go ahead.
So the development agreement only restricts future legislative acts or different rules or regulations if it impacts the parking. So if the council wanted to bring back some sort of amendment to the general plan land use designation, and it doesn't impact Mace's rights under the development agreement, then the town council has that ability to do that at a later time. Additionally, since the agreements do restrict the lot, the current restriction, the 95, as well as the proposed development agreement, that certainly would be an argument that the town would make to the state for exclusion or exemption of this parcel from any kind of RENA allocation, since under a binding agreement, it can't be used. Again, it's an argument, not for sure and not definitive, but it certainly a compelling argument.
But, yeah, but just to be clear on RENA, it's not like the state comes in and designates particular sites for housing. It's,
Yeah.
I understand the concern about, it's like,
acreage.
gets factored into some sort of methodology that they
The amount of square
use.
footage,
Yeah.
though.
Right.
I think
No,
that's
I-
a really legitimate point here we need to
Yeah.
be concerned about.
Okay. All right.
So what's the solution?
Well,
Fix it later.
I say fix it later.
Fix it
So straw
later.
vote.
Fix it
You're
later.
okay
Fix
with
it
it the way it
later.
is tonight? You fix it
Prove
later.
But we gotta fix it later. I think Jim makes a really good point.
Yeah, I agree.
Jim?
If I vote no, will it derail the deal?
Well, I don't know. Let's take the vote, straw vote this way. Are you okay with the
But,
designation?
Jim, I wouldn't do it just for like effect. If you say what you know what I mean?
I really don't want to take any more parcels in that part of town and designate them for housing. And that's what we're doing here.
But we're saying we're gonna come back and we're gonna fix it shortly.
Yeah, I know, but
And we're gonna change the designation so that it's not there, so it's not gonna end up there.
And not only that, but under the development agreement, housing won't be allowed. But
We're in agreement with you. We're just saying, let's fix it later, because to figuring it out.
and I
tonight's
don't
too
think later
difficult.
will ever come. That's my.
Oh, I think it will.
can you go with it the
So
way it is now?
I just be clear. I agree with Jim's perspective that if we don't do it tonight, we should assume it's never going to happen. I'm okay with never doing it though, because I don't think that we are. I don't think that we need to do that given the development agreement. So I think Jim, you're right in your perspective on that, but I'm okay with not making that change because I don't think we need to ever bother with that.
Okay. Are you okay with proceeding tonight?
I would like to proceed. I would like to revisit it.
Got it. And me as well. So we have enough votes to cover that.
Okay, and then the last problem is you had kind of a list of things that I couldn't take notes on that you wanted changes of some sort, and that was the
these are
fourth
not
thing.
demands. These are things I'd like to see. You know, I'd like to ensure that the employees have security out there late at night.
So I don't, if you
things
want to
like
add that to something.
No, I'm not, but I stated my case, hope they listen. You know, at this point, I don't think we can get into the nitty-gritty to that level of detail. I mean, we got to move on.
I'm good with not doing that, but we need to acknowledge the fact that there's no obligation in that regard.
Absolutely,
Okay.
but I stated my piece, and hopefully somebody listened.
Okay.
I'm glad you listened. Thank you.
So,
It's late.
can we start moving resolutions here?
Happy to do that.
Okay, I'll move that we approve resolution number 54/2017, which is the environmental impact report.
Second.
Hold on, our town attorney looks like she's making a comment.
So just for clarification, it would be helpful in all of the motions that you make some sort of representation of and reference to the statement of findings and mitigation monitoring reporting program for the EIR.
I have no idea what you just said.
So as part of your motion for approving an EIR,
Yes.
the council, as part of the resolution, has to indicate that they can make all of the
I
findings.
can make the findings, but I thought that was our discussion. That needs to be part of the motion?
Are you doing
Would be for
54,
clarification on-
2017? Here, it's right here.
So we need to read the whole title.
Jesus, okay.
It would be very clear for the record.
Okay, I'll move resolution number 54/2017, a resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Corte Madera certifying an environmental impact report for the Village at Corte Madera Restoration Hardware Expansion Project and making findings, including adopting a mitigation monitoring and reporting program pursuant to California Environmental Quality Review Act, CEQA guidelines, section 15090 and 15091.
Second it.
May I request that we clarify that wherever it says restoration hardware also applies to RH? Because remember, they've kind of rebranded and.
Yes, I suspect it will not be offensive
Will
to
you-
them either way.
Will you
yes.
amend the motion?
Yes, so amended.
Do you accept the?
Sure.
Thank you.
Councilmember Andrews.
Yes.
Councilmember Bailey.
Yes.
Councilmember Ravazio.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Condon.
Yes.
Mayor First.
Yes.
Okay, I move to adopt resolution number 56/2017, the preliminary and precise plan amendments and
Okay.
design review.
Do you mind if we back up to 55?
Oh,
Which is
wait a
attachment
minute.
number 2.
Wait a second.
Here,
I
I'll pull a
skipped it.
Carla.
Okay. Thank you.
I got it.
Okay, to adopt resolution number 55 slash 2017, a resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Corte Madera amending the Town of Corte Madera general plan by amending the land use diagram of the land use element, changing the land use designation for the gravel lot, APN 024-032-19, from wetlands and marshlands to mixed-use regional serving commercial.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you.
Councilmember Andrews.
No.
Oh, wait, Bob's got to say something.
I think the parcel number's wrong.
Oh, was that one corrected? Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah,
the
could we-
parcel number was corrected per Phil Boyle's memo at the end. The parcel number on this
Actually, it
resolution.
was, the errata was, also needs to be, it's a second, it's 024-032-19.
Okay, and I modified my motion to,
Put the correct person.
So what the errata in the staff report was 023, and it's really 032-19.
So this memo
No,
is
it-
incorrect.
Should,
It's
Correct,
supposed to be 024-032-19.
Okay, and
So
I-
the memo in here that says it's supposed to be 023 is incorrect.
okay, I'll amend
Thank you.
my motion to
reflect the
read
correct.
correctly the parcel number.
Second.
Councilmember Andrews.
No.
Councilmember Bailey.
Yes.
Councilmember Ravazio.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Condon.
Yes.
Mayor First.
yes.
Okay, I'll move that we adopt resolution number 56/2017, a preliminary and precise plan amendments and design review, a resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Corte Madera amending the Village at Corte Madera preliminary and precise plans and approving the design review application for the Village at Corte Madera restoration, RH, or restoration hardware expansion project, with the condition regarding a delegation of determining the correct fence or the appropriate fence to staff.
Second.
Thank you. No, was that all we needed to add to that? Thank you.
Did you,
So we have a motion and a second?
Yeah.
Councilmember Andrews.
Yes.
Councilmember Bailey.
Yes.
Councilmember Ravazio.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Condon.
Yes.
Mayor First.
Yes.
All right, I'll move resolution number 57/2017, the conditional use permit, a resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Corte Madera approving the conditional use permit application for a cafe with a 5,800 square foot serving area with the proposed 46,000 square foot RH Gallery building at 1618 Redwood Highway as part of the Village at Corte Madera Restoration Hardware Expansion Project.
Second.
Councilmember Andrews.
Yes.
Councilmember Bailey.
Yes.
Councilmember Ravazio.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Condon.
Yes.
Mayor First.
Yes.
So now I'd like to, do I make a motion to introduce ordinance number 973, an ordinance of the Town Council of the Town of Corte Madera approving a development agreement between the Town of Corte Madera and Corte Madera Village LLC.
Second that.
Councilmember Andrews.
Yes.
Councilmember Bailey.
Yes.
Councilmember Ravazio.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Condon.
Yes.
Mayor First.
Yes.
All right. I can't find the last one, Carla. Do you have it?
I'd like to introduce ordinance number 974, an ordinance of the Town Council of the Town of Corte Madera amending the official zoning map of the Town of Corte Madera dated August 1994 by changing the zoning designation of the gravel lot APN 024-03-019 from Parks, Open Space, and Natural Habitat, POS, to Regional Shopping District C2.
Second.
Councilmember Andrews.
Yes.
Councilmember Bailey.
Yes.
Councilmember Ravazio.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Condon.
Yes.
Mayor First.
Yes.
I heard enough.
We're at 11. We've got a couple of very quick things we can simply get through really quickly.
Nope.
You're not-
Oh.
Really?
Just what you.
It has to be unanimous, does it not?
Really? We can't finish up the last couple of things?
No.
Oh, Jim's saying no. Nice. I reasonably am willing to do it. Jim, shame on you. I am horrified at your failure to be a part of the collegial atmosphere we have developed
Why
here.
do we need the decision?
We're not legally mandated.
No, we don't. I
We're
guess.
not legally mandated regarding the mayor extension or consideration, but we do have, we'll have 4 council members at the next meeting. So that's one thing to consider, but other than that, we can extend it to the next meeting.
Yes. 4 resolutions, 2 ordinances.
Okay, it's going to make it extremely difficult to deal with it at the next meeting with only 4 of us.
I'll find a way to come. How's that?
Thank you. Thank you. All right, then, since we've reached the end, do we need to move to continue those items, or I simply call adjournment? All right, meeting adjourned.
Thank you.